You join us today on the beautiful River Soar at Sutton Bonington in Leicestershire, very close to Ratcliffe Power Station and the very noisy East Midlands Airport. We're here with Steve Hemingray today, who's kindly agreed to show us his tactics that he uses on the river when it's coloured and carrying a little bit of extra water. Now, Steve's team, Sensor Starlets, have just won the Soar Valley Winter League. In fact, they won 5 out of the 6 rounds. Now, there's 6 teams that compete in this league, and each team is made up of 10 anglers. 5 fish on the actual River Soar and 5 fish on the Loughborough Canal, which is just nearby. Now, Steve told me that the team tactics on the actual river was to catch as many small fish as possible with a chance of an odd perch. Steve's going to show us today the tactics he uses to catch these bonus fish. So Steve, what a beautiful looking stretch of the river we're on today.
Yeah, we're at Sutton Bonington on the River Soar. It's quite a diverse stretch of river. There's different methods that will come into play to get you good results in matches.
When you was plumbing up this morning, Steve, it was either a very good guess or it was as though you actually knew the venue, given that you hardly had to move your float when you guessed the depth. Do you fish here quite a lot?
Yeah, I've fished here all my life since I was, in my teens. It's not that far from where I've always lived, the south side of Leicester. So it's probably about 35-40 minutes drive for me, and there's been lots of great matches on this river for as long back as I can remember.
Well, it's certainly a cold one. I mean, we're only a week away from Christmas.
It's a cold one today. The temperature's been gradually dropping this week, and I think it's going to get a bit colder yet.
Your Winter League's just finished then, Steve. When's that run from?
Usually it starts in mid-October and runs through till sometime now. This year it's ran a little bit later than normal, which has made the fishing a little bit more difficult the last couple of rounds.
I've been following the results, and it's certainly a competitive league you're fishing in. Very consistent. What sort of weights have you been needing in the matches?
Generally I've had between 4 and 6 kilo of roach, mainly have been my weight, so I did have 4 kilo, which was 4 skimmers at the weekend.
What tactics would you normally use on this venue then, Steve?
It depends on the level of the river. It's always changing. Obviously if we have a few days of rain it comes up. The bream tend to have a little bit of a peck, and then it's a bit of pole feeder and feeder fishing, flat floats maybe. There's some bleak to be caught when it's like that, and then if the river's more normal, a bit like it's been today, you're fishing chopworm for perch, casters and ground bait, and pinkies for roach.
So you say the river's normal today. To me it looks like it's still carrying a tinge of colour and certainly some extra flow, but the bream have been absent today. Is that normal?
Yeah, that's right. Generally only feed for a day or two when the colour first comes in, which is really typical of what's just happened. At the weekend it was coloured, the bream fed. 2 or 3 days later the colour to what it was has dropped out a little bit. It's a bit more greeny tinge now, and really it's more of a perch and roach river than it was at the weekend.
It was noticeable today, Steve, that you changed tactics after about an hour or 90 minutes in. You actually changed away from the ground bait and focused more on the short line with worms and casters.
Well, we came here as a bit of a long shot really today, hoping we might catch an odd bream still, but the colours dropped out a little bit too much, and I realised after about an hour that we probably weren't going to catch one. Maybe late, but it hasn't happened. So I really switched what I was doing just to catch the fish which is going to feed in these sort of conditions when it's gone a bit clear, which is, perch really.
So how far into a match, Steve, do you start considering changing tactics?
So really the first hour of the match I'm sort of looking at what's happening, seeing what other people are catching around me as well, and it's a matter of just changing your tactics if you need to tailor them to the conditions and what's feeding on the day.
Most of the day today I see you've been fishing a flat float. What size flat float have you used today?
Yeah, that was a 6 gram flat float, just about right for the depth and flow we've got here. Yeah, it's sat nice and it's been about right.
So you say the float sat nice today. What makes your mind up regarding size of flat float to use on any given day?
So basically for a start it's looking at the water, the pace of the water and the depth, and having a bit of a guess at it. If your float is too heavy, it will tend to, if the flow's going that way, it'll tend to lean that way. If it's too light, it'll ride up a little bit out the water. And you know, somewhere in between you'll know it's perfect. Sometimes you'll have to take it off and put another one on just to get it right.
So why choose a flat float over a round-bodied float today?
Yeah, well, a flat float is what it says in its name, really. It's flat, it's more streamlined, and it enables you to fish a smaller float for the strength of the flow. So if you try to use a round-bodied float to hold the bait still, with the pace of the river is working for a flat float, you need a float twice as big.
Looking at your bait tray today, Steve, you really have brought just about everything with you.
Because you don't know for sure what's going to happen. The river level's changing, like we've already spoke about. You know, you could come here thinking, oh, it's going to be bream, and it's a little bit too clear, and it's ended up a perch job. So you need a variety of baits at the start of the day, and then as the day progresses, lots of things get, you know, thrown out the window, so to speak, and you end up selecting the baits that you're going to use. And then it's just a matter of I mean, today it's been a bit of a patience job. It's set your trap, feed it carefully, be patient, and then wait for you to get a few bites and hopefully a few bonus fish, perch, which we've had today.
It's been noticeable today how many times you've actually changed hook lengths and size of hook.
Yeah, well, the main reason is to suit the bait you're fishing. I mean, for a start today I fished with lobworms, tails of lobworms, half of lobworms, and that's caught me a few perch for a start, and then it's been a matter of changing my hook and my line diameter and trying smaller baits. And it's surprising that sometimes the smaller baits, as has happened today, has caught the biggest fish. Double caster has caught me, you know, my biggest 2 perch. So it just goes to show it's not always big baits, big fish. Sometimes you can ring the changes and catch your better fish on a smaller bait.
The session today was clear. You fished 2 lines, one short with a bait dropper and one long with ground bait, and then you changed. Why did you change, Steve?
Yeah, well, it became obvious after about an hour or so that, you know, it was highly unlikely we were going to catch a bream. I just felt it was a little bit too clear, so at that point I felt it was time, you know, it still gave me a chance of catching a bream. I didn't overload it on my longer line. I just decided that I'd start putting a bit of chopworm and casters in that line to try and edge my bets a bit. It'd still give me a chance of a bream later on, but it would also give me a better chance of catching some perch, which is what I was catching on my shorter bait droppered line, you know, from pretty early doors.
It surprised me that towards the end of the session you didn't keep topping that long line up very much, Steve.
I mean, eventually it becomes a case of, if you're not catching what you really wanted to catch on it, like the bream, you can only keep going at it for so long, and then probably your best chance of catching the bream then is just to leave it alone. So I was getting plenty of bites on my short bait droppered line off perch, so I just felt at some point you just got to stop feeding it, leave it alone, and hopefully you drop in at the end and you maybe get one.
So you're teaching me something now, Steve, by not topping this long line up. This is maybe where I'm going wrong in the past, by just keep piling the bait in.
Yeah, in my experience, there becomes a point when you just can't keep going at it, and the best chance you've got of getting a late fish is just to leave it alone and just hope something settles on it.
This really is a beautiful stretch of river, Steve. Is this actually a day ticket venue, or do you need a book?
No, you need a book for this. It's River Soar in the water, and there's some bits that are like this, more canalised, quite wide, quite deep, and there's some lovely natural, non-navigable sections of the river as well. They've got loads of water, you know, not just the River Soar. I think they've got 1 or 2 still waters, the Loughborough Canal, and it's a very reasonable price. So, you know, for anybody local who's looking for somewhere to fish, I'd recommend this without a doubt.
Although you've only fished a short session today, probably, I don't know, not even 4 hours, you've still had a nice catch, Steve.
Yeah, I mean, in the end I've ended up with about 6 or 8 pound of perch. I mean, you know, for a start it was looking a bit iffy. I've changed my tactics a bit, gave up trying to catch a bream, sort of, but still kept topping it up for a while in the hope that there was a few came, and yeah, it's been a nice day really.
So a lesson to take from this, rather than just sit there catching nothing, try and keep busy, try and keep rotating those lines, and try and keep an odd bite coming.
Yeah, it's a matter of giving yourself another option. You know, we've come here to try and catch a bream or 2. It became clear from the start, really, it wasn't going to be 100%, so I fed a shorter line for some perch just to give us a bit of a backup so we could catch a few fish.
So the tactics you've used today, very similar to how the Winter League would have been fished?
With the only difference is, I think on my long line I'd have just been taking all the little fish that were obviously there, the small roach and small perch. I would have plundered them in between, catching my bonus perch short.
Although the peg we fished today is very scenic, it certainly was a long track to get up here, Steve.
Yeah, it was a bit of a hike, but sometimes it's worthwhile taking a long walk to try and catch what you want to catch.
It really has been great today, Steve, watching one of the best, changing tactics all day to keep bites coming.
Sometimes that's match fishing for you. You've got to adjust what you think you're going to do at the start. Isn't always what you end up doing at the end, and it's just a matter of changing your tactics to suit the conditions and the day.
Well, it's certainly been educational for me today, Steve, and very enjoyable, so thank you for that. It's just a shame those bream haven't fed.
Yeah, it's been a freezing cold day today. It's a shame the bream haven't fed, but maybe we'll get back sometime when it's a bit warmer and we'll catch some of them bream.